Hey guys, it's Lion here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're doing our monthly wrap up for the month of October. So, before we begin, I do want to mention that I was the YouTuber of the month for the Omnibuds Cafe Facebook group. So, if you guys are interested in checking it out, I recommend it. It's really cool. You know, everyone there is really nice. It is both a comic book discussion kind of group. It's also a buy and selling kind of group. So you get best of both worlds there. I'll leave a link to their socials down below. And I want to, extend a thank you to Sal and Kevin and everyone that is part of the team over there at Omnibuds Cafe. I really appreciate it. I think that they took a chance on me, and I hope that it paid off. I hope that the people in the group were interested in the videos that I was putting out. And if not, I'm sorry, but hopefully at least some of y'all enjoyed them. I think someone was going to make a video response to one of the videos that I made this month, and hopefully that's an interesting conversation. So yeah, I just wanted to shout them out one last time here, and I'll still leave their links up on my YouTube videos for the next couple months or so, probably until the end of the year, if you guys are interested. But I won't really be mentioning them on the videos all that much unless it's important to the discussion, right? So yeah, but thank you guys very much to everyone that watches, but also to the people over at the Omnibuds Cafe and J-Rock for hooking me up with the team, right? So yeah, today is a wrap-up video. I'm gonna be talking about what I read and what I watched this month, but I also wanted to give just kind of an update on my life here a little bit, just for posterity's sake, right? Mostly these videos are, if you guys are interested in seeing what I read, but also they're for me to watch later on and remember, oh, this month I read this stuff, right? Just because it's easier to do that than having to dig through all of my journals for it, right? So this month was very, very interesting. I would say that this second half of it was kind of difficult for me, pretty difficult for me. But the beginning of it was really great. My family came up to visit. We had a nice day taking them around the city and going to different restaurants and weird places and fun stuff. The following weekend after that, I went to the Denton Otaku Festival, I guess you could call it. It was supposed to be a food festival, but it actually ended up being more like a convention. They had a food section that was really big. I got to see the Dallas Sumo Club do an exhibition. It was really fun. It was really interesting. I was asked to participate, but I was not interested, so I didn't. But I really enjoyed watching it. And I think that watching sumo is something that I'm going to be interested in doing from now on. I think it'd be really cool. I have to research it, but it seems like a really interesting sport, even if it's like kind of odd to think about. Then the middle of the month was fine. I had some school stuff that I had to deal with, but nothing too serious. But the last couple of days, the last week and a half or so has been pretty freaking difficult for me. So I just have some school trouble. I'm just having to decide something that I'm not really sure I need to be deciding, but I have to because the deadline for it is coming up. And that's not really all that difficult. I mean, it's mostly just an issue of like sunk cost, right? And the fact that sunk cost should be costs that you ignore because you've already paid them, and so they shouldn't factor into your final decision-making process, right? But the thing is that the sunk cost fallacy and the sunk cost ideas really only apply to businesses where you don't have an emotional stake. I have a bit of an emotional stake in this decision that I have to make, and so the sunk cost aspect, it actually weighs pretty heavily on me, right? It's money and time that I've wasted that I feel that I could probably find a way to still leverage, but because of what happened a few days ago, I don't feel that I have the emotional strength or the emotional capacity for it right now. And so I feel that I have to make a choice that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise, right? And I'm just kind of stressed about that, right? So what happened recently is that my family dog died. And it's been about a week. Actually, I think it's a week today, Thursday, since she died. Although me and my sister, who lives with me here in Dallas, didn't know about it until Saturday. So my parents and I had scheduled a time during the week when we were going to call because we'd been really busy and we wanted to catch up, and I needed to talk to them about something not that important, actually. And for whatever reason, it seemed like it wasn't really working out. And then Saturday, I had some time before me and my sister were going off to a concert that she had bought tickets for with a friend that couldn't make it at the end of the day. And so I was going to go with her to make sure that the ticket didn't go to waste. And I called my parents just to talk to them. And immediately I knew something was wrong because my dad was talking in a way that felt like he was trying to hold back tears, right? And he told me, go get your sister. I got to tell you guys something important. I didn't really know what was going on. And once I got my sister, my dad broke down crying and told us, Sophie, our dog, passed away a few days ago. And he explained to us, we didn't want to tell you guys. I'm sorry if I start crying during this. He explained to us, I didn't want to tell you guys because I knew you guys had plans this weekend. And it was going to ruin your plans, your weekend if I told you, right? And so I was trying to hold back, right? He told us this. And I totally understood. I thought it was, I was thankful for him to try to do that, but I ruined it by accident by calling him. And so he told us that she had passed away last Thursday at like 4 p.m. or something. She had been taking her nap that she usually took. And my dad had been in a meeting. When he came out after his meeting to check on her and just see what was going on, he noticed that she wasn't breathing, and by the time that they got something going on, they figured out what was wrong. Her body had grown cold, and they just had to go to the vet and process her death as like legally and whatever, and put her up to be cremated. And well, it really sucks. I was probably the least close to my dog out of everyone in my family. I think that just because of the nature of my age compared to my sister, and the fact that I lived away from home for about 7 years at this point, I was really only close to my dog for about the first 8 years of her life, right? But I did not expect it to hit me as hard as it did when my parents told me that she died, and it's just been pretty hard the last couple of days, just thinking about it. And the fact that, we're going to go home for Thanksgiving in a few weeks and she won't be there. It's pretty tough, man. So that's just really been dragging me down, and it hasn't been great, to be honest with you. But I'm just moving through it and getting through the day, and it should be fine in a couple weeks. But man, it's just gonna be different, right? And I'm not looking forward to that, if that makes sense. But thankfully, or I guess maybe oddly, it hasn't really affected my reading, all that much. I think that's because reading is my main hobby, but it's also where I draw a lot of comfort from, right? And so since my parents told me she passed away, I've been reading a lot more, just as a way to kind of find some comfort in my day. And so it helped me actually reach most of my reading goals, not all of them, but at least the manga stuff that I said I was going to read, I did. And so for the sake of the channel, that's good, but my personal life is a bit topsy-turvy right now. So if the quality of the videos drops lower than it already is, which is pretty low as it is because I don't really try that hard to make the videos, I apologize for that in advance, right? But I'm not feeling great, but I also don't want to take time off away from YouTube, because YouTube is a hobby that brings me joy, right? And so if I took a step back from YouTube, I would free up some time, but then I'm not really sure that time would be well spent, because I would just be sad. And so finding something to do is probably a bit better for me. I'm that type of person, right? Me and my mom are that type of people where we just kind of have to, I wouldn't say find distractions, but find goals to achieve, to move through as we go through our grief, right? So, that's what's been happening in my life. So, sorry for such a downer, but we'll talk about what I've been watching and stuff now. So I'll see you guys in just a second. I need a moment here. So, okay, I think I'm a bit better now. So, let's get started with the watch list here with what I've been watching this month. So I started off the month by watching Pacific Rim. There was a showing of it at AMC theaters this past month. Actually, it was supposed to be last month, at the end of last month, But the first couple days of October, they still had some showings, so I rushed out to watch one, and it was wonderful. Pacific Rim is one of my favorite movies ever. I watched it on my 14th birthday when it came out. Maybe it was my 13th. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was my 14th. And I think it's the only movie that I ever watched with my grandpa, with my dad's dad, right? And he passed away earlier this year. So it's not like a core memory that he was there or anything, but it's one of the distinct recollections I've have where we did something with my grandpa that wasn't like at his house or like, you know, visiting with all of our family, right? That it was like a distinct event that was like my nuclear family and my grandpa and my grandma, right? Because I think my grandma had passed away at that point. It had been a few years at that point. And we were in Mexico for the summer because that's what we used to do. And it was my birthday. Pacific Rim had just come out. I don't know why it had come out in Mexico the same day that it came out here in the States, because that usually doesn't happen, but it did. And we went to watch it. My grandpa tagged along, and he was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. But, you know, the visuals were cool, and I loved it because I was 14, and kaiju movies are awesome, right? So somehow going to watch this movie was an interesting way to remember him or connect with him in an odd kind of way. And so there's more appreciation to Pacific Rim now than before, and I really like that. It was also really cool just to see it in theaters again for basically I guess it's the second time I've ever seen it in theaters. And I've watched this movie like a billion times. I think I watched this like 2 or 3 times a year. And to the point that my roommate is like, oh, you're watching that again? I don't know. It was wonderful to see it in theaters again and kind of have this interesting kind of vaguely unclear connection with my grandpa through it, right? Then I started watching Dan to Dan, and man, I love Dan to Dan. It's so fun. It's ridiculous. It's insane, but I love it. I think the animation is awesome. I love the characters. I think Ayase and Okarun are wonderful. I really like how they interact. I enjoy the like romance aspect that they have going on, because it's unclear if they're going to really romance or not, in a way that I feel is very natural for like high schoolers, right? And I really appreciate the work that was put into the series, right? I really want to read the manga, but I know that if I read the manga, I'm gonna immediately lose interest in the anime, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm holding out to the end of the first season to read the manga, right? So probably sometime next year, and hopefully I'll really, really enjoy it at that point as well. Then I watched Rebel Ridge. And Rebel Ridge is really awesome. I thought it was a great movie. The actor there has been recently cast as a Green Lantern, and I think that's awesome. I think he really fits that archetype. You know, the Black Green Lantern from Justice League Unlimited. I can't remember his name at the moment, but the character he played in Rebel Ridge is perfect for the character that would be based on that version of that Green Lantern, right? I think it's amazing. I think the casting there is phenomenal. And Rebel Ridge is basically just a Reacher, but it's a black guy in a different small town. And it's pretty awesome. I really, really liked it. I think that they did a great job at condensing the first season of Reacher into a single movie in a way that feels really awesome and really good and doesn't have any, like, odd positioning to it. Like it all flows very nicely, and I think Rebel Ridge is an awesome movie that I recommend everyone watch. I think it's great. Then I watched Predator. I'd never seen Predator in my life, but you know, I had recently watched a bunch of Alien movies, and I thought that it'd be interesting to watch the other, you know, 80s alien-based action movie, right? And so I watched Predator. I thought it was really fun. I actually really appreciated the effects that went into it. I think that the camouflage looks ridiculous, but everything else was great. I think that it was really well done. The plotline is really stupid, but also it works really well. And I just had a great time watching this movie. And I really, really enjoyed all of the stupid callbacks and memes that I'm aware of because of the internet that I had never really realized were part of Predator, right? So I had a fun time watching this. So I really am happy about that. Then I watched Wild Robots. And this movie is freaking amazing. I know it's ridiculous to say that because it's a movie about a robot for kids, right? But it really speaks to you as someone that has been a young person and grown up and had to leave their home, but also as someone that's an adult and wants to have kids or has had kids. And it has like this amazing broad appeal that really just works so well. And I think that the animation is wonderful. I think that the writing that went into it and the way that the story unfolded was wonderful. I think that the core message of, like, you know, motherhood that the story was trying to tell is great. It's really interesting because I feel most of the time when we get that lone wolf and cub kind of situation that we got in Wild Robot, you know, where there's an adult character and a baby and they have to deal with that reality. When we get that sort of thing, it's usually like an adult male and either a young boy or a young girl, right? And usually I think in the last couple years, it's been more common for a young girl character to exist, right? Just look at Pedro Pascal's, filmography in the last couple of years, and you'll see what I mean. I think Grogu is a boy, but he's a baby, so it's kind of unclear, you know, what gender he really is, right? And so it was really interesting that we had this lone wolf and cub kind of storytelling, but it was actually a mother in this case, and I found that to be really valuable. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was wonderful. I want to show this movie to my parents, and hopefully they'll like it too. So we'll see. Then I watched My Hero Academia You're Next. This is the 4th movie in the franchise, and it's by far the weakest. I think it's probably the worst one. Maybe it's a bit better than the 3rd one, World Heroes Mission, but I think that Horikoshi probably wasn't that involved in this. I think he was, but maybe not enough. And also maybe he was involved in this quite clearly and deeply, but he's just not in the mood to try to make it good, because, you know, that's kind of how it felt like for the last year or so of the franchise before it finished. So we'll see. But overall, this is probably a bad movie. If you want to watch any of the My Hero Academia movies and you want to have a good time, I recommend the first 2. I can't remember what they're called, but the first 2 are really great. The 3rd one is fine, but it's kind of, it takes a long time to get good, and it's a lot of time is spent on characters that don't matter. And there's even like a section where it's like a 3-minute music video that doesn't add anything to the plot. This one doesn't have anything egregious like that, but the problem is that a lot of the world building that the main series has done negates all of the situations that happen in this movie. And so what happens is that you really feel like there's no point to it, because there was easier, faster, more efficient ways of the bad guys to get what they wanted without having to resort to what the MacGuffin character ended up being for this movie, right? If that makes sense. And so it becomes kind of disappointing when you realize that. Then I watched Look Back. I went to the movie theater with my friends, with my roommates. My roommate and my ex-roommate, who is, those guys are my best friends, basically. And we went to watch Look Back, which was a movie I was not really interested in. I knew that they would want to watch it, so I had mentioned it to them a few times, just to remind them about it. But I was not interested in it personally. However, because they wanted to go, and I was like, okay, let's just do that. I mean, we can go eat lunch beforehand, so it wouldn't be like a waste of my time, technically. I would be, you know, happy to sit with them for an hour in the movie theater if we did lunch first, right? And so we did, and we had pub food from a London pub here in the area. And then we went to watch the movie, and man, I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. It has a lot of heart. It really deals with artistry and the journey that artists have and the loneliness, but also maybe the harsh reality of it. And, you know, I'm not an artist or anything like that, but I have struggled with artistic endeavors before, and I've always kind of gotten to the point where I just feel like there's no point to it. It's not worth it. I don't have the gumption necessary to do it. And I think that this movie really inspires you to go past it, but also it tells you the reality of it. And I think it's really interesting. I really loved it. There's also like 40 minutes at the end of the movie that were an interview with the creators and the creator, because there was a guy that was like the director, but he was actually just the guy that made the whole movie by himself, basically, or mostly by himself. And there were the 2 actresses, and they did a lot of talking about the movie, and I really appreciate that, because one, it makes it so it has an equivalent runtime to a normal movie, but also it gives you a lot of insight into the creation of the movie that I find valuable. I thought it was really, really cool. Then I watched Ancient Apocalypse Season 2. It's called The Americas, I guess. And I really enjoyed the first season of Ancient Apocalypse. I thought that it was really wonderful, that it had a very narrow, strict focus on, like, you know, this is what real history says. This is what I think. This is why I think this. And let me go to different places to show you why I think this, right? And then you can make up your mind about whether he's right or not, right? I think Graham Hancock overall is a bit of a kook. He really isn't a real archaeologist, nor are the theories that he proposes all that good. They're mostly based on like intuition, or kind of like basically just really wishing that it was true. And so it kind of comes off as like fake, right? And then actually it is. There are some interesting points that it brings up, but they don't have the necessary backing to really mean something, right? And so I enjoy the work for the sake of it being like an interesting pseudo documentary. But season 2 feels a lot more scatterbrained, and that's kind of weird because I feel like you would want it to be more serious so that it could fight back against all of the allegations that he's had thrown his way, right? But it actually ends up devolving into ayahuasca in a really weird way. Ayahuasca is a DMT drug that people in the Amazon take regularly, right? And it's basically tied to like shamanistic tradition, right? So I understand why he included that, but he spent like 2 episodes talking about that, when I would have preferred that he talk about like architecture and ancient civilizations in the context of like the ancient civilization idea that he had, instead of being like, maybe ayahuasca is the reason why they have all of these commonalities. And like, I think that's a valuable bit of insight, but that isn't the focus of Ancient Apocalypse. That's kind of like a side thing. And I don't like that he spent so long talking about it in the main series, right? So, I don't know. Maybe if you had done like a separate, you know, thing called like Ancient Apocalypse Miracle Drug or something like that, that would have been better. And I would have been much more interested in it. But it made Ancient Apocalypse Season 2 just feel really ridiculous. More so than it already did, right? So I'm pretty unhappy about that. Then I've been watching Penguin. Man, that show is phenomenal. The thing is, it's not really a superhero show. It's a gangster show that happens to be set in a superhero world. And I find that to be really interesting because this is something that Disney needs to learn to do. And I think that they failed miserably in the last couple of years with the way that they treat Marvel and Star Wars. And I think that for whatever reason, DC is doing a much better job at that. And maybe it's not even DC, maybe it's just Matt Reeves or whoever the name of the guy that made the Batman movie is. He's doing a much better job at this. And I love the Penguin. I think that he's such an interesting character because he's a piece of shit. But because of the way that the story is framed, he is the hero of this story. And you like feel for him, you understand him in a way that is like crazy. And because of the Victor character, you can empathize with like the reality that this is fucked, right? And so this descent into madness that this young Victor character has through Oswald kind of wanting to have this like father relationship with him is so dynamic and interesting and weird, and I love it. I think it's really, really great. Also, what's her name? Sophia, right? I think that's her name. Gigante. I love her. She's amazing. She's the character, or she's the lady that played the mom in How I Met Your Mother, and I love her. I think she's amazing. So yeah. Then I watched OP fan letter, or One Piece fan letter. This was a wonderful episode. I loved it. I think it really highlights the value that One Piece has. Basically, all of the characters in One Piece fan letter are like fan characters for the One Piece Straw Hats, right? So it's an in-universe set of characters that for whatever reason find themselves admiring the Straw Hats. And we get to see them go through these wacky situations in Sabaody as the Straw Hats are coming back after the 2-year time skip. And it focuses on this girl that is a fan of Nami's and the strength that she finds in trying to be like Nami. And I think this is a particularly Japanese kind of concept, right? Because they're basically treating the Straw Hats as idol characters. But there's also something universal about it. The idea that everyone has a hero and that their hero might be someone random to you, but to them is the most important person ever. And the value in having these heroes, right? And it's just wonderful. And the framing device, I think, is so sublime. It's so cool. It's so interesting. And I really, really, really love it. So I really like this episode. I think that it's wonderful. So you guys should watch it. Then we watched Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 with my sister. After we heard about our dog, my sister had been kind of isolating herself for a few days just because it hit her really hard, more so than it hit me, even though it really ruined my day. My sister was a lot more attached to our dog, right? Because she's the one that picked her out. She's the one that named her. She's the reason we even got a dog. My sister had really wanted a dog for a long time, and my parents finally, agreed. And so when my dad told us that the dog died, she took it really hard. And it took a few days, but me and my roommate finally managed to get her to come out of her room and watch some TV with us to try to, kind of normalize the situation a little bit. And so we kept going with our Harry Potter marathon. So that's what we did. And I think it helped. So I'm pretty happy about that. But overall, I've been watching a lot of awesome stuff this year, or this month specifically. And I'm very happy about that. My month hasn't been great, but I've watched some good stuff. So let's move on to the next section here. Let's talk about what I've been reading. But I need a little break here, so I'll be back in just a sec. All right, I'm back. So let's get right into what I've been reading this month. So there's going to be some order to it, but I'll just leave it as a single section because I can't be bothered to try harder today. So let's talk about all of the stuff that I've read. Let's talk about all the stuff that I read that is mostly just writing, right? Like the written word in terms of novels and short stories, right? So I read a few Jules de Grandin stories. I read The Isle of Missing Ships, which is like the 5th story that featured these characters. Jules de Grandin is an occult detective that released and published alongside Conan the Barbarian in Weird Tales back in the day. The creator of this character is called Seabury Quinn, and he is a well-known but kind of forgotten at this point creator of the Weird Tales magazine that kind of deserves a bit more love, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many, I guess. But the thing is that the 2 stories that I read this, or maybe 3 stories that I read this month, let's see, it was The Isle of the Missing Ships and The House of Horrors, so only 2. Neither of these was actually an occult story. It was more like body horror type stuff, which is, is still scary, and that is the point of this, but it is not like weird, if that makes sense. Like, it's almost like these 2 stories were more like Silence of the Lambs or James Bond than they were like Harry Dresden, if that makes sense. And maybe that's due to the fact that the occult detective genre has evolved since, the 1920s when Seabury Quinn was writing. Or it could be that the character of Jules de Grandin started off as a more generic kind of James Bond type character, and then eventually evolved into an occult detective story type character. Or it might be that at the time period, these were occult things, right? A giant squid and a crazy surgeon that would mutilate people were kind of scary, crazy, unlikely things back in the 1920s. Post World War II and kind of into the modern era, I would say crazy scientists that mutilate people is not that weird, because there was a bunch of them that worked for the Nazis that gave us all of the technology necessary for modern day reconstructive surgery, right? And so that's not really a weird thing nowadays. That's pretty understood reality of the dark side of medical science, right? And a giant squid have been proven to be real, so it is not a cryptid or a creepy, scary monster. It's just a thing that lives in the ocean that rarely ever gets seen, right? And so these creatures, just by virtue, or these things, just by virtue of time, have lost their weirdness, right? And so it kind of comes off as like not, you know, good occult detective story writing, even though it might have been at the time, right? But the way that the story is written is good. I like the characters. Jules de Grandin is a funny little guy. He's like a little tiny French elvish looking guy, and he has a friend who is American whose name is Sam Throwbridge. And Sam is just like, what the fuck is going on? This guy's crazy all the time, and it's really funny. So I like this. I thought it was fun. I also read Uncrowned, which is Cradle number 7. I said I wasn't going to, and then I couldn't help myself just because I love Cradle. I think it's really fun. I actually read through most of the next couple of stories as well, Winter Steel, and I can't remember the name of the other one. Reaper, maybe, I think is what it's called. And I wouldn't say that I finished reading them because I skipped through sections of them. Like when it wasn't Lyndon's point of view, I just would skip over them. And so I haven't really finished reading them, but broadly speaking, I know what happens up to the end of the 9th volume, right? So what I'm going to do is, I was planning on doing the Uncrowned review in October, and then having one in November, and then having one in December, and then starting off the year next year with the reviews for the last 3 books, right? But because I couldn't get a review out this month, I think I'll just do 2 in November, 1 in December, and then I'll do the next of them next year. I might do all of them in January, but I'm not really sure. It depends. I might be willing to wait to review them until later, right? But it kind of depends on what's going on with my life at that point, right? So then I was reading Gyun Saga, and this is a Japanese light novel. This is a heroic fantasy light novel. It's basically Conan the Barbarian if there was a little bit more of a Game of Thrones vibe to it. And it follows this guy called Gyun, who is a barbarian man with the head of a leopard. And he doesn't know why the heck he has the head of a leopard, but he does. And it's unclear if it's a mask or if it's literally his face. It seems like it's a mask, but also he has to like flex it to use it, so it doesn't look like it's a mask. It's really confusing. But the point is that this guy, Gyun, suddenly appears in a forest one day. He finds these 2 children who are twins, Remus and I can't remember the girl's name, although she's more important than him. And they become friends. As they do this, they get captured by these black warriors. Black as in they wear black armor, not like their skin tone is black. And they become prisoners of war because these children are actually the prince and princess of the kingdom that just recently fell. And that's basically all I know about it so far. That's basically all that's happened halfway through the story. It's pretty enjoyable. I like it. I think that the storytelling is fun. The way that the story is told is good. It is really simplistic though, so it almost feels like you're reading a middle grade story with like adult themes, which is really odd, but also kind of exactly what light novels are. So it kind of matches, but I feel like light novels have a more, like, they feel like YA novels, where this feels like a chapter book, like a kid's book, right? In terms of the way that it's written and organized, right? But broadly speaking, it's really enjoyable. I like it a lot. I will finish reading it and buy the rest of the volumes that are available in English, and then cry in despair because there will be no more. Because this series has like 100 volumes in it, and Kodansha, and actually I think it wasn't Kodansha, it was Vertical, decided to only publish the first arc in the story, which is the first 5 volumes, which is the first, I guess it would just be basically like, you have the Wheel of Time, but you only publish the Eye of the World, because you know that most people are not going to read 100 volumes of the story, right? It kind of sucks, but it's understandable. And so I will try my best to support the series by buying all of them, doing reviews for all of the books, talking about it as much as I can, and then hopefully that means we'll eventually get more of it here in the States, you know, at some point in the future, but it's probably going to take a miracle for that to happen, right? And then, because the death of my pet really affected me, I ended up actually kind of stumbling across remembering that I had Kraken Rider Z, and remembering that it's about a boy and his Kraken as they go through life. And I thought that this would be an interesting way to gain some comfort from reading, but also kind of deal with some of the realities of having a pet that I'm now struggling with now that I don't have one, right? And I thought it worked. You know, the way that the Kraken Rider Z is written is really great, really simple. I really enjoy it. The first couple chapters are a bit weak. Like the prologue feels very, very clunky, but it really shows you what, you know, Z, the main character, is striving for eventually, right? So even though I respect it, I think that the beginning is really clunky, The first couple chapters are also pretty difficult to read in the sense that they're just kind of boring, because it's about a child who finds a kraken egg and then just plays around with the little kraken. And that's enjoyable, and I remember it, and it reminds me of my sister, actually, because my sister was about 7 years old when we got our pet, and that is the age that our main character is in Kraken Rider Z, and he has a little pet, right? And so I appreciated that fact, but the writing is a bit difficult. However, once you get through the first 5 chapters, which is pretty fast, the story finally gets good, and I really appreciated it at that point. I really enjoyed it, and then it continues on from there, and I'm about 30% through the book right now because I stayed up late last night trying to read more. And at this point, Z has grown into adulthood. He has managed to find his way to the Dragon Rider Academy, and he and his Kraken, whose name is Jessup, are having to find a way to prove themselves. And I love it. I think that there's a very classical epic fantasy story here that echoes a bit of like the story of Arthur Curry Aquaman in a kind of funny way, but also it's also just a story about a boy and his pet as they go through the life, and I like that. I think that that's really good, right? So similar to when my grandfather died earlier this year, and I found myself finding comfort in that that Legends of Lattes book, I'm finding comfort for the death of my dog in this Kraken Rider Z book. So I appreciate writers, independent writers specifically for this, because they've been helping me cope with some of my grief throughout the year. So I appreciate that, and I thought it was a pretty interesting read. So I recommend Kraken Rider Z. Just get through the first 5 or 6 chapters, and if you don't like it by then, it's not going to be for you, but I recommend it. I think it's really great. So yeah, I think that's it for the books. Let's just jump into the rest of the stories here that I read this month. So let's get started with comic books here. So at the beginning of the month, I read Penthouse Comics number 4 because I realized that I had not read it when I bought it. This is probably the best issue so far. I think it has a lot of value to it. I like it a lot. I think that the cover is nice. And I did a review for it, so if you want my full thoughts on that, you can go check it out. Then we have Penthouse Comics number 5. This is a great cover, but they fucked up because they forgot the trade dress on it. It doesn't have the information that it needs to have like this one does. And this is not because this is a virgin cover. I did not buy a virgin cover. They just fucked up and forgot, because every other cover has the information except for this one. And dude, it's 5 issues in. This is a $10 magazine. These stupid mistakes should not be happening. Is this picture wonderful? Am I happy that I have it as a virgin cover that has minimal trade dressing? Sure. But that's not what you set out to do. And so you messed up, and so I don't appreciate it. I think that it's wrong that they did that, right? They should have recalled it, waited another week, printed out the proper ones, and found a way to get rid of those. And the fact that they didn't bother is kind of annoying, right? So yeah, but that issue is pretty good, so I'm happy about that. Then we have The Me You Love in the Dark. I read this because I saw Casually Comics, I think her name is Sasha, do a review for this a few years ago. My sister got this for my birthday because I was slowly trying to collect all of Scotty Young's independent work, except for I Hate Fairyland because I'm not that interested in that story. And I decided this was a good time to read it. And man, it was pretty good. It was really enjoyable. I like the concept of it. It's about art again, and it's about finding inspiration and love in the toxicness that might lead to, right? This is a story about a monster fucker, female creator who moves to this weird little town that has a creepy house in it. She lives in the creepy house. It turns out that it's home to a eldritch being, and she fucks it. And it turns out that this is like a possessive, creepy, toxic relationship that she has to escape from through destroying this entity. And it was really awesome. I really enjoyed it. The thing is that if I didn't know that was a Scotty Young story, I would have said that it's a Mirka Andolfo story, just because it has that vibe. Although it's better written, because Mirka Andolfo is not really that good of a writer. She's good at having themes and having concepts and good drawing, but I think that she fails in execution when it comes to writing, right? Scotty Young doesn't have that problem. And so this comes off as like what Mirka Andolfo wants to make with her stories, in a really weird way, and I feel bad about that because that's not fair to creators, but it just kind of has that vibe. It is really interesting, but I really appreciated the story. I thought it was good, and I have Twig as well, so I'll read that in the coming months, and I think I'll probably end up reading Middle West, another Scotty Young, Jorge Corona work here soon. So yeah, let's do single issues now. So we have Island of the Tiki Goddess. This is a Mike Hoffman book, and I didn't like it because the cover lies to you. You expect something that isn't going to be given to you, and that sucks. Here we have Thor the Rock Warrior. This is pretty good. It's basically just when Tarzan goes to meet Law of Opar for the first time, but it's actually kind of like a Thor character instead. So that's pretty good, but it's not particularly amazing. I did enjoy the artwork though. Here we have Dick Tracy number 5. This is the end of the arc, and I'm not going to collect any more of it. I like it, but the thing is that I think noir detective stories have to be read in one sitting, or close to one sitting if you can. And because of the nature of comic books, that's not possible, or it gets really annoying to do because every month I have to pull out my old comics and read them all in one go so I understand what the story is doing. At that point, I get bored. And so trade waiting is the way to go with Dick Tracy, so I'm not gonna bother buying any more of it. Here's Remote Spaces. I like that this was a bigger issue than normal, but I don't understand the point of this. I didn't really get it, so that's kind of disappointing. You have Thundercats number 8. Pretty awesome stuff. I am feeling a bit like stuff is going a bit too slowly at this point, and I needed to ramp up before I decide to drop the story, right? So yeah, here we have Red Sonja number 14. It's probably the best issue so far, and I feel like I say that every time, but this time I mean it. Red Sonja 14 was awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. You have Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Usagi Yojimbo. This was a great little story where the Power Rangers travel back in time to when Usagi Yojimbo existed, although actually I think they would be dimension hopping, but they said it was traveling back in time, and they interact with Usagi Yojimbo, and they get some cool samurai armor, and it was pretty fun. I liked it a lot. Here we have All In Special. This was the first printing. The second printing has a different vibe to it, but it's pretty good. I really enjoyed this. I think that the way that the storytelling was done across both stories to match in the middle was phenomenal. Very well done. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the greatest thing ever, because you would assume that a company that has been publishing comic books should be able to make a good comic book every time. And, so they did a good job, but it's nothing to sing their praises about, because this is what is expected of them. This is what I pay money for, right? And so I think that a lot of people are giving them a lot of praise for this that they don't really deserve, because this is what they're supposed to be doing. And the fact that it's rare that they do, so rare in fact that we think it's amazing when they do, is a problem, right? So yeah, but that's just me being a crockety mean guy today, because I'm sad. So yeah, here we have Conan Battle of the Blackstone number 2. This took forever to get to me because my local comic book store was having some issues with the distributor, but I finally got it, and I'm very happy about that. I love this story. I think it's really awesome. I'm liking it a lot more than Jim Sub's previous attempt at a crossover between the Howard characters, and I think it's really fun. I can't wait to read issue 3. We have My Adventure with Superman number 5. I really enjoyed this. I think it works really, really nicely. It does fit into the storytelling of the anime or of the show, but again, I think it took too long to publish, because at this point, the hype around My Adventure with Superman has died, and this should have been building hype, not dragging hype along with it at the end of the story, right? If that makes sense. You got Transformers number 13. Awesome. I loved it, although I think Jason Howard's artwork is a bit less dynamic than the previous 2 artists, and I think that that's a bit of a letdown. You have Wonder Woman number 14. I really enjoyed this issue, and I just love the artwork in this. Conan number 16. Awesome ending to the story here. We get to see Atali, or actually, we don't get to see Atali. We get to see the reaction that Conan has to Atali, and the reality that he reaches a decision about his faith, right? And he basically decides that he believes in gods because he has been proven to his face that they are real, right? And as a young person, well, not that young, I'm 25, but as someone that recently went through their own journey of self-discovery into deciding what their adulthood would look like, into what their faith would look like, I appreciate what the story is about, right? And the way that it contextualized one of Conan's earliest adventures into a solidification of Conan's personality and his feelings about religion and his feelings about his gods, right? I think that's valuable, that's meaningful, and it is a fantasy version of the journey of self-discovery that you go through when you leave your home, right? When you become an adult, when you go off to college, or when you do whatever it is that you do to become an adult in whatever part of the world you live in, right? And I appreciate that. I think that was really valuable, and I think that a lot of young people will probably find a lot of value in it, right? I'm someone that decided that faith is not for them, that I don't believe in religion, and this year that's been proving to be a little bit of a struggle, because without religion, it's pretty hard to give people hope and feeling and helping them feel better about death. However, I'm very happy with my decision still. I think that religion is abhorrent and it's not good for the modern age, and so I appreciate the journey that Conan went through. I went a different direction, obviously, but I think that this is valuable for people that need help deciding. It's valuable for young men that are struggling with this to read this and maybe understand, hey, it's okay that I like religion. It's okay that I want to be in it. It'll help me, right? And I think they even talk about these sort of ideas within this book. So I really appreciate it, right? Not for me, but for other young men that are struggling with these realities, right? Which I've met quite a few throughout college. There's quite a few people that I've talked to that were like, I don't know if I believe or I don't, and my answer was never helpful, because I'm like, well, yeah, don't believe, it's fine. But I think that exploring it through fiction is really meaningful. So I appreciate that James Sub did that, right? So yeah, let's see. Here you have Spider-Man number 10. Awesome. I love this story. I really, really enjoy these talking issues, because sure, not a lot of action happens in them, but a lot of storytelling happens, and I really love that. I think it's really well done. I really, really like it. Here we have Dark Knights of Steel All Winter number 4. This is the penultimate issue, I think. Maybe there's 6. I thought there was 5, but 6 would be better. And I really, really enjoy this story. I think it's fun. Batman decides to leave because he got injured and he needs to go back to where he can get sun. So he has to leave, but he left on good terms with Slade, and I think that's cool. I wonder if this is going to come back to another season of the story later on, right? Yeah, Flash Gordon number 3. I love this space adventure. I think it's really fun. I like the artwork. I like the colors. And I enjoy the moral decisions and moral ambiguity that has had to follow Flash Gordon for these couple of issues, right? So I really enjoy that. And here we have Witchblade number 4, which really ramped up its action kind of stuff. Sarah is still trying to figure out who she is and what's going on, but she's getting somewhere, because now she has Ian Nottingham who's helping her, and it looks like the darkness is going to come here soon and become her enemy, right? And I'm very excited about that. So that's it for comic books. Let's look at the manga here real quick, and then let's get out of here, because I'm tired of talking, to be honest with you guys. So yeah, let's see here. Let's start from the beginning, I guess. So we have Case Study of Vanitas. I am undecided about this story. I like the concept. I like the aesthetic. I don't enjoy the tone shifts that happen in this story. It's just something that's not really for me. I don't like when something is super serious and then suddenly there's a joke. Because like, I like it in live action. I think it makes sense, because there is a more visceral reaction to seeing real life people going through situations than characters in an anime, right? But in an anime, it completely kills the momentum of the scene if you suddenly have these like little chibi characters show up and do really stupid little gags. And so I find myself unhappy with the way that this is written. So I'm not going to read more of it, although I won't get rid of that book yet, because I might change my mind later on. Similarly, I'm unhappy and unsure about my feelings on Game of Familia. I think I'm going to leave it alone for now. I do want to get more of it, because I think the concept is good. I like the idea and I like the writer, but it's clear that the writer really didn't think about how he had to structure his fantasy world in order to make what he wanted to happen, because this is supposed to be like a single male character in a female dominated world doing stuff, right? But that ends up not being the case, because by the end of the first volume, we see that there are a lot of men in this world. And so the concept that the character is supposed to be the only male or very special for whatever reason dies immediately. And that kind of kills the interesting aspect of this male character, because in a classic isekai story, the male characters have nothing to them. They are blank slates, basically, so that other people can connect with the story through them, right? And so that kind of kills the momentum of the story for me, and I didn't really like that. So we'll have to see if that changes, but I'm not going to go out of my way to buy another volume. If I find it used, I'll get it. If not, I'll probably just end up getting rid of these 2 books in the next couple of years, right? So yeah, then we have Chain Soldier number 6. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. Chain Soldier number 7 and Chain Soldier number 8. So what happens in this part of the story is basically that we finally get to meet the rest of the Mato defense squad, and they all happen to be really interesting characters, right? And I think that Game of Familia wants to be like Chain Soldier, but just doesn't manage to do the right storytelling bits, the world building bits necessary to make it happen. Because Chain Soldier clearly sets up only women can have powers, only women can access this other world. This male character, for whatever reason, is helpful to the female characters that have powers, and so he also gets to be in this world, and he is the only male across the world, right? Or across this secondary world. And so it makes sense that he's interesting and important, and he has more of a personality to him than the guy in Game of Familia, right? And so when I'm reading both of these stories at the side by side, it makes Game of Familia look way worse in comparison. And that sucks, but Chain Soldier is so well written, and the creators take a lot of care to make sure that the fan service works within the story in a way that feels very meaningful and intentional, even though it is just, how do I show boobs the best way so that it lands well with readers? And I think that that is a really interesting way of looking at it. So I really enjoy reading Chain Soldier. So we get introduced to all of the great leaders of these squads. We get to see that they have to interact with each other, they have to train together, and then we get to see that the leader of the squads, the kind of like general, I guess, is insanely powerful. She's really, really special. She has Buddha powers, because of course, everyone loves Buddha powers in Japan. And the 8 gods of destruction are getting ready to really do something. So things are ramping up to have like a big battle, and I'm really excited about that. So, and then we have Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid 4, 5, 6, and 7. And so I really enjoyed this story. I think it's great. It's really fun. There's some issues here and there that I don't like Kana has some situations there that are kind of ridiculous in the sense that it's like very slight, very meaningless kind of fan service that could easily just not exist, and for whatever reason the creator chose to make it exist. And it's a little bit uncomfortable, and it happens so rarely that it's not really all that important. Beyond that, the story introduces Ilulu. She becomes part of the cast. And then we get to see the origin story of Toru, where she comes from, where she was born, who her parents are, why she is the way she is. We get to see the backstory between her and Elma. And we get to go to magic school, where we get to see Shota grow and become a bit more sure of himself and develop his relationship with Lokua to a much better degree. So I really appreciate that a lot. I think that the character building and the character development that goes on throughout the story is wonderful, beautiful, and really, I wouldn't say inspiring, but it has a lot of heartwarming elements to it that really help me feel better. So I really enjoyed reading this the last couple of days. And finally, to end the month here, I read Mashle. I was originally going to read 11 through 16, which is the latest books that I got. But when I looked at it, I actually realized that I had not reviewed the arc that is encompassed here from 9 to 12. And I thought it would be best to wait for the other books because I need volume 17 and 18, which are the last books in the series. And then I could just do a single arc review for the last arc in the story, and that would be much better for me. So I have to wait until December, so that means that Mashle will finish up on the channel by next year somewhere, probably by mid-April, if that makes sense. But this arc here was pretty awesome. It was just basically the Tri-Wizard tournament, but a bit more evil because the characters have to fight each other instead of fight situations, right? And it was really awesome. I really enjoyed the ending of this arc because it introduces us to Innocent Zero's children, who happen to be Mash's brothers, and they're awesome. They're really, really interesting characters, and they're all very, very evil, except for Doom, who might be good. It's kind of unclear, but I really enjoyed that. So that's all I've been reading this month. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this video comes out relatively soon, today on Thursday, if I can get it out as fast as possible. And hopefully I'll have some time to make more videos tomorrow so that I can have a good bit of cushion there for the beginning of the next month. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoy, and see you guys later.